All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Jill from Wendy, one of the conference organizers. We're really excited about today's conversation. Conscious inclusion in your recruiting efforts can and do work. I'd like to introduce Elaine Orler, president and co-founder at Talvista, who will be moderating this talk. So please enjoy, and also make sure to ask any questions you have in the session's chat panel. And yeah, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Jill, and welcome everybody. I'm excited about this topic. I'm also a little disappointed that we're going to be tying up with the same closing keynote. So like I normally do, I'm going to finish fairly quickly and fairly early. So if you don't want to see my voice and see my talking throughout, just go ahead and double click on the slides, and those will enlarge on the screen for you, and you can work through the slides as we talk through the conversation. I do want to share with you about a case study that we've just begun to publish at Talvista. It's specifically with Raytheon. And I'm going to share with you some of the results and how they got to their results. And then we're going to wrap it up for the end of the day. But before just completely jumping into the case study, I pulled some metrics on what's happening today. We know that the unemployment rates today are some of the worst they've ever been. And as we look to what those unemployment rates number, and as we start to dig into the deeper analysis of those numbers, we're finding that there is even greater risk in other diverse categories, specifically women being at a higher percentage overall, as well as people of color, African American, and Hispanics. And when I think about these things, I think only about the reason why I started and I co-founded Talvista with Scott Sessions just 2 years ago. We believe that talent acquisition has an opportunity to make a big change in bringing about equality in all of the opportunities that we have. Equality in the way that jobs are perceived and understood by our candidates, equality in the way in which they are looked at through the resume review process, and equality in the interview cycle as well. We each bring our own inherent unconscious bias, but we have tools, and we absolutely believe that technology can help us be better and smarter. And that's why this case study for Raytheon is so exciting to me right now, because that's exactly what they set out to prove and exactly what they were able to prove. Raytheon kicked off with us at Talvista just over 9 months now, September of 2019, with a theory in mind. Let's find out if we can improve our job descriptions so that we increase the value and the opportunity that we have for females, specifically in finance and engineering positions, but across the organization. And let's see if it impacts in the other diverse categories as well. During that study, they ran a comparison of all the same jobs that were published with the similar jobs 6 months prior, and 6 months of jobs published through our optimization tool. The results during that time, I'll get to those in a minute, but the comparison allowed for them to really look at what were the differences, what was the value add. In many of our pilot cases that our clients are going through today, we're doing live A/B testing, posting a job that hasn't been optimized up against a job that has been optimized to see those results in comparison in real time. But as this study went about, we looked at the jobs that were exact same jobs of 6 months prior to these jobs of this 6 months. And the overall results were an increase of almost 50% female candidates across the tech and the finance-based jobs. Well, I can honestly tell you that none of us believed this data. We had to go back and look at the data over and over again. We looked at it sideways. We turned it upside down. Now, I can also say that I expect the tool to actually be efficient. We've been projecting 30% increase. But for this kind of numbers, we really wanted to dig in deeper and understand why. And the job description optimization component, that ability to take the jobs and move them forward in a neutral stance. And what our tool does is allows you to look at what are problematic terms versus what are inclusive-based terms. And the analysis needs to be done by somebody in talent acquisition or within the business. We don't tell you exactly what words to change it to. We give you suggestions on what words might be the best solution or options for how to improve that description. Problematic terms are based on defined research and science that has been studied and professionally distributed. We don't do any machine learning or any kind of intimation on different types of terms. We only use what's based on the research and science today. And thus the results are based on that research. So with their case study and with their opportunity, they saw such a huge lift in female candidates. We've evolved their study to look at some other areas as well, which I'll get to in a minute. But with the reality being, if you optimize your job description, you can expect a more diverse field. And as I go back to that original summation, where we are in the market today, the fact that unemployed candidates are predominantly more female than white male, they're also predominantly more of color. than white, we have a huge opportunity to think about how we're publishing the few opportunities we do have now and the many opportunities we will in the future towards the candidate population. Their own unconscious bias is having them pass that job up for some reason or another, and that's what these problematic terms represent. Terms that typically turn somebody off, though they may not know why. And when you adjust those terms to neutral terms, the intention is there feels familiar, and there's an opportunity for somebody to express interest that might not have expressed interest otherwise. So that was the first baseline of the study. We've continued to look at other opportunities for people of color and race and ethnicity. We're still in the middle of that study and still analyzing that data, but the results are still looking good. We're again continue to be profoundly astonished with the overall percentage and excited for Raytheon's success. The second part of the study that we're going to be going through with Raytheon very quickly is around what we call redacted resume review. And with this study, it ties directly to another parity that's happening in the world today. We know through many different research reports and public announcements that candidates that have African American or Hispanic names or titles have to apply 50% more than those that have white names or in their resumes. In fact, we know of studies that have talked about teaching candidates to change their name to sound more common in order to avoid them being disqualified just for a lack of understanding about the name. And we've set out at Tal Vista to solve for this in a better way. We've created a redacted resume or a blind resume review component, which allows you to mask that information from the resume, but still facilitate the resume review process in such a way that the hiring manager can quickly and clearly and concisely determine if the candidate has the right skills, values, education, or experience for the job. We're also ensuring that that manager has the ability to review those things without being distracted by what equals familiar. So often in many of the other sessions today, we talk about where familiar equals safe. And that is something that is natural to each of us as humans, but not something we want to carry into a resume review when it's non-relevant. Just because they went to the same school doesn't make them relevant for the job, or just because they went to the school that was your competitive school does not make them irrelevant for the job. We want to look at the information that is truly relevant, and thus masking the name, the contact information, any visual cues allows you to focus on what is true and relevant to the job. This is our next phase with Raytheon. This is the next activity we're going to be going through with them for their overall study. And we're looking forward to publishing those results over the end of the summer and into the early fall. And that is the summation of the study. I would love to answer any questions that we have in the chat. Let's see. How do we get to the root causes of conscious and unconscious bias when hiring managers base success profiles largely on exemplar, defined most often based on personal preferences and non-quantitative reviews? That was a really great question. I think I butchered it in saying it out loud, but let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing is hiding what is familiar so you can focus on what is relevant. Tied to that, we also have a component within the product that allows you to elevate what's important. So often it's the mindset, and as having been a recruiter, the number of times a manager would tell me, I'll know it when I see it. Just send me all the resumes and I'll gladly just pick the one I like. Just means that they didn't have a very clear and concise decision on what was necessary for the job. We like to see organizations push forward values and skills required for the job, and then structure the resume review around those values and skills. Much like every resume out there, there's an education element, there's a work experience element, and there's a skills element. And those can be rated very quickly in a blind resume review. Do they have the education? Yes or no? Do they have the experience? Yes or no? Do they have the skills and values? Yes, no, maybe. And in those answers, that derives a score formula for that candidate without, again, knowing what their name is, knowing what school they necessarily went to, in some cases, not even knowing the employer they worked for. So it creates a more fair and just evaluation in the resume review process. Well, thank you very much again, Dave, for that question. And if there's any other questions, I'd just be excited to say again, Raytheon's results were exemplary. We do see on average for most of our customers about a 30% increase in female and minority candidates responding to jobs. We're going to continue to look at the results. Raytheon has gone on record with the quotes and conversations around their results, and excited to continue with us as well in the program and their approach. And if we don't have any additional questions, I do completely understand. I, as much as you, are excited about what this conference has been about, but I'm also equally excited to hear the closing component of the closing keynote. And I'd love to offer to you to go over to the main session, join the closing keynote and the final toast, as well as the magician. And I'm always available on chat and online for anything else you might want to chat about. And I look forward to seeing you in a future event. Thank you so much.